We made it to Big Easy, New Orleans, Louisiana, in advance of Eagles-Chiefs Radio Row for the Super Bowl. We're not talking about either of those teams. All Commanders. Let's have a podcast. What up, everybody? It's Beltway Football live on location, Radio Row, New Orleans, Louisiana. Big man, we're here. Another here. Super Bowl in the books.
We're here in the Big Easy. It's been early on this week. A lot of folks walking around Radio Row. It's usually a little bit quieter this time of year.
Monday for Radio Row has juice. I can't imagine this joint on Friday.
Oh, it's gonna be nuts.
I'm planting a flag, and no three quarters about it. We're going full mast, not half mast.
Let's go full mast.
I think we invented podcasts coming to Radio Row.
We were one of the very, very early ones to do it.
Now it's probably 70% podcasts, honestly. But I'm telling you, it was a horse by a different name, owned by a different company. There were a lot of different factors involved, but I'm pretty sure we were the first ones to do this.
You know what's great is I think we were in Miami for the Super Bowl. Remember the people kept walking.
We did one before that.
Wait, we did Atlanta. We've done a bunch of them, but we were in Miami, and the people kept walking in front of the camera, and we were getting so frustrated.
Remember Theismann yelled at that dude the one time?
I almost.
That video still exists
It
somewhere.
does. Maybe we drop it in here, but it was pretty funny. But now every table has cameras and lights and the whole nine. This whole thing has changed a lot, and it makes it a big event even that much bigger.
There's a Visit Pittsburgh booth over there. I guess they're about to have the draft. I was like, is there a Visit Pittsburgh
How about
booth?
this? Each of these different booths
New Orleans
have.
is a city you visit.
Right.
Pittsburgh, sorry, isn't.
All these different booths have different food. The Green Bay one has cheese curds, a bunch of other stuff.
Is that where you got the brats?
That's where the brats came
Mitch
from.
delivered me a miniature brat earlier today. I never thought I'd say that sentence.
Pittsburgh's food.
Thank you again.
Pittsburgh's food was
pierogies.
That's what I would.
Pierogies suck.
You would have thought it was something like that. It was a fried pickle in like phyllo dough.
What are these? There's people bringing
walking around
stuff about.
Oh,
hello.
New Orleans is doing a whole thing with.
Greg, go get them.
New Orleans is doing a whole thing. Their booth is Hellman's Mayo. And
I like mayonnaise.
I hate mayonnaise.
I know.
There's a bunch of like little giveaways on the table, and I was about to grab them, and they all were Hellman's Mayo, and I was like, I'm good.
We do have actual news today. Commanders owner Josh Harris spoke, but Greg, you're worthless. Go get the
little shrimps.
Yeah, we want little shrimps with mayonnaise. That's part of the charm. As always, Beltway Football brought to you by MGM National Harbor. Go check them out. They do not have. I don't know what we're getting. Hello.
Here we go. Come on over.
You're about to be on TV in DC.
What are we working with here?
We've got shrimp cocktail two ways. So you've got a traditional cocktail sauce from Louisiana Fish Fry, and then you've got a creamy cocktail from Blue Plate Mayonnaise.
All right, I'll start creamy.
I'm going to go traditional,
right?
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
These are two local brands. We're here with the New Orleans Host Committee, so swing by every day this week and get something new and delicious.
Fantastic. Any crystal in here? The crystal hot sauce?
Nope. You'd have to add your own.
All right, I'm a big fan of the hot sauce, so thank you so much, guys. That's fantastic.
That was great. Are you guys familiar with Old Bay, the spice?
Yes.
Can we get a little Old Bay added in there?
Oh no, absolutely not. You gotta boil your stuff in Louisiana Fish Fry.
Right, isn't there like a Zatarain's or the
Louisiana Fish
Fry?
It
Yes.
just keeps butchering what we're trying to promote here.
Correct. I keep bringing up the other things.
Let's show the people.
That's my own
Get
mistake.
yourself some blue plate cocktail sauce.
Or
Louisiana
Fish Fry.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so
Fantastic.
But Old Bay's still good. That's our part of the world. We got to represent. All right.
Fantastic.
Thank you, guys. That was a good little piece of shrimp. You want me to put that down for
please.
you, pal?
I was just going to be holding cocktail sauce the entire show.
Well, that's a sentence we also didn't expect to say.
Certainly
Let's
not.
get down to business.
Josh
little bit
Harris.
of actual news. Not really. Harris made clear they're not changing the name.
In this building, the name Commanders means something. It means that, it's about players who, love football, are great at football, hit hard, mentally tough, great teammates. And so it's really meaningful that name is growing in meaning. And so, but as far as rebranding and bringing our past, which obviously I grew up with, and all the Super Bowl championships and our future together, you're going to see us head back towards, honoring our past and bringing it together with our future.
Is it safe to say the Commander's name is around just to stay? Is that safe to say from your standpoint?
Yes. And we're actually, I think it's now being embraced by our team, by our culture, by our coaching staff. And so, we're going with that.
All right, it's a little lame that Harris had to come out and definitively say, yes, the name is here to stay. But a lot of this is politics-driven. There's all these weirdo bots that have made this their, like, pet cause, even though they're not fans of the team. Then there are people that are fans of the team that want the old name back, and I recognize all that. And I recognize the name kind of sucks, but this year, when we were getting ready for that Detroit divisional round, I wasn't worried about the name. You know what I mean? Like, as it continues, Jaden's the most popular jersey in the world. It gets harder and harder to change, man. That's just the reality.
And that's what's tough, is Jaden is the number one selling jersey. Commander's name isn't a great name, but
it sucks.
We've been saying forever, the team wins, and all of a sudden those things start falling behind. Now, to me, this talk about rebrand and things changing,
I think they changed the uniforms.
I think that's the important part. And the red and white jerseys are
terrible.
The red is not burgundy,
right,
which is the big problem.
Right.
If they can come out with a burgundy jersey, that would be fantastic. You know, if you use the logo on a throwback for one throwback game, maybe you're able to.
You think they're bringing the old logo back?
I think maybe for a throwback game, a variation of it, whether it's a feather, the R.
Maybe the sphere.
Yeah,
there's a sphere. The spear.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different things you can do to honor the old name, to honor that Redskins name, without going back to that name. But the uniforms need to be improved.
And my theory, and I know people listen to this, stop playing that new Hail to the Commanders song. It's god-awful. The chorus is so screwed up. Just play the
audio,
the music of the original song and let people be adults so they can sing whatever they want. Because they're singing it anyway, so just play the real song, because the new version of that song is completely bastardized and ruined.
Right.
So there's my piece of honoring the past. It sounds like you're at a kid's birthday party, and there's 4 kids being celebrated, and nobody knows what order. So it's like, happy birthday to Mitch and Greg and JP, and everybody kind of says it real quietly. Like, let's just let people sing.
And I actually like the black jerseys. I've heard that there's some. I could take them or leave them. They have no history, no real relevance. If they want to update that jersey to a different alternate one, by all means, go for it. But the jerseys need to be improved. Period.
The white and red look like a Arizona Sun Devils alternate uniform.
Yeah.
Like
we're down here in New Orleans. It could be Louisiana Lafayette.
Right.
Could be the Raging Cajuns based on the
totally.
You know, it's not Redskins, Commanders, Washington Football.
What is awesome to listen to with Harris is that, like, as much as people try to hem and haw about the name and the uniforms, and there's a ton of stadium talk. Let's boil stadium talk down real quick. They want it to be RFK. If they can get it done with RFK, if the city can come up with the cash, if all those things can work, it'll be RFK. If not, they're going back to Maryland, because Maryland's got cash on the table. You know what's enticing? Cash on the table.
And Josh Harris answered those questions extremely well by being
so
kind of. Let's hear Josh on the stadium.
Obviously, the DMV, right, is 3 jurisdictions, and it turns out DC's in the middle. Plus, it's the location maybe, but plus because of the history, it's location that when we do surveys is the most acceptable. But there's a lot of things that go into this, and we play in Maryland right now. We have an amazing relationship with Maryland. And like I said, it's not just our decision. Like, the decision is about the specific regions and areas and states themselves and DC itself. So, like, we have a lot of dialogue going with everyone, and we're going to keep pushing forward. That I continue to, kind of just be transparent about what the surveys say and how the area feels at large. But that doesn't mean that there's not a lot of support in Maryland, a lot of support in Virginia. There is. But obviously D.C. is, kind of aligned with the history and happens to be the easiest place to get to for the most number of fans.
I think it's important for the team to play in an area that is beneficial for the fans. It's going to be beneficial for those communities, and it's going to be beneficial to the team. I'm also a kid who grew up in Washington, D.C., going to RFK Stadium. And I remember that experience. And I see that stadium site today. I went by it when I was down in Washington in December. And frankly, it's really it's disappointing. It made me sad to see that area and how the stadium looks today and how that community looks. I think a new stadium there can be a huge economic driver. I think it would be great for our nation to be able to see a new stadium there with the stadium and with the monuments and the Capitol in the background. I remember that as a kid growing up. the power of that vision and what it means to that community, I think is a really powerful thing. So if it turns out that that is the best alternative, I think it'd be a great thing.
I reiterate, they want D.C. as long as D.C. gets it together, and I think they will. If you look at this ownership group, you look at their kind of spheres of influence between Mitch Rales and Mark
all
Ine,
the companies
like,
that they
DC guys,
right.
man. Like these are guys that are wired into this city. I think it gets done. I think Harris said they want it by 2030. I think we are watching
the wheels
Commanders
turn.
Football, which eventually won't sound so terrible, I guess.
Yeah.
But like burgundy and gold is what I say most of the time now. I think we're watching the burgundy and gold. I don't know about 2030. It seems pretty optimistic. It's still a red tape town.
Now's the time to be optimistic, though. But he did a really good job. Listen,
Maybe 2031.
Clearly, they want RFK. For a while, it's felt that way. But Josh Harris was really smart talking about getting the two municipalities between D.C. and Maryland to be, quote unquote, fighting over getting the team. So that you have some pressure on D.C. to get it done, because it's not just a slam dunk that it's happening.
Well, and dude, one thing for Maryland specifically that I haven't really understood this. When you drive by RFK right now, it's an eyesore, and that sucks, right? Like it's just been neglected, and it just looks sad. But it's my understanding, I'm no businessman, but the ownership group owns Northwest Stadium. So should they get a new stadium, they're not just going to let that rot. It's still an asset on their books. They could try to sell it. They could tear it down, try to flip it into condos. Whatever. But like, these dudes are genius businessmen. You think they're just going to let something sit there and rot? I've never understood that concern, but at least now it's crystallized that it's not a concern.
Yeah.
And dude, all their business people are in College Park now. Like they have a foothold in Maryland. Kind of regardless. Well,
and Josh Harris talked about wanting to build out the practice facility in Ashburn and expand it and make it better. They had $75 million. He said they're going to be up over $100 million now. The one thing that he said that I thought was the most prescient part of his presser was, we want a stadium where the players are going to be excited, the fans want to go to, and the coaches want to coach at. And quite frankly, it's similar to what he said about the Commanders' name early on when he took over the ownership group. Hey, if we start winning some football games and we get a good environment, folks aren't going to be so concerned about it. Right. I think you can say the same about the stadium. Winning football, good environment, make it a place that fans want to go to. Yeah. It'll be a destination.
I think eventually maybe a new practice facility's possible, but I think it's always going to be in Virginia. I think in their ideal world, they continue maybe their business operations in Maryland.
Right.
Get RFK. I think the land of RFK won't allow it to be this massive project that some of these other stadiums are looking for. And I think that's a real testament to the Harris group, all of them, that they still want to be there, even though they know, like what Cleveland's trying to do, what the Bears are trying to do is get like 8
New England
square miles
about what
and
New
build
England
their own
built
town.
in Gillette.
Right,
all the bars and restaurants and casino and hotels.
They'll still make plenty of money.
They'll make plenty of money. But what's great is that they're playing the politic game so well.
Yeah.
They're keeping Maryland involved. D.C. obviously with RFK, practice facility in Virginia. Josh Harris mentioned DMV multiple times, and I think you can see that it's not just words out of his mouth. He wants the entire area to be involved.
Yeah, and it also helps the bottom line too.
Sure, certainly.
But by far what mattered most to me is throughout this presser, he talked for 20, 25 minutes or so. Like, so little of it was asking him about football, because there is a trust and a reality.
Separation of church and state.
No, there's not, because, Harris makes a point of saying, we're going to go through the process. Those guys will advise me. Like, they're not separated, but the football people are in charge, and I think us, as media analysts, fans, whatever, like, watching the product, you trust in the product and you trust in their decision making. So it's like when Harris comes out and talks about the excitement and how that's going to raise expectations, that's fair.
Obviously, the season came out amazing and better than anyone expected, and no one could have sat where we were all sitting at the beginning of the season, where we had entirely, for the most part, a new coaching staff, a new front office. More than half the players were changed, but obviously, credit to Adam and Dan and their staffs for bringing everyone together, and credit to the players for making it happen on the field. And so, look, we got it. Like, we've arrived, and that changes expectations. And I've lived through this before, and we welcome it. And we're just going to work harder and to create a situation where next year we win.
When I was saying separation of church and state, it's not that the business side is separate from the football side. But for so long, the waters were muddied between who was in charge and who was making those decisions.
Yeah.
And yes, Josh is involved in those decisions, but he's also not there dictating things the way that the previous owner did.
I think it's important that people understand like functional businesses, like functional pro sports entities. The owner is involved. We just came from this place with Dan where the owner's involvement
was almost a GM at times.
Dude,
it was just too much.
And just undercut anybody in his path. And now there's just a structure that the owner's going to be involved, but like it's going to align in the right way and work. Right. One of the biggest non-Josh Harris things, the news of the day, certainly, I mean, it was funny, like you kind of saw it go through Radio Row. We were live early on radio. Was Myles Garrett. So this is kind of interesting. Here's a TV trick. Mitch got to talk to Ryan Leaf earlier, and he just walked by. You get to hear that later. How about that? But no, so the Myles Garrett thing was pretty fascinating. Garrett is an absolute star, stud, whatever word you want to use. I mean, he's like a 7-time All-Pro, Defensive Player of the Year.
Everything you want out of a defensive end and then some.
The only time he's really missed time was his rookie season. He's got at least 14 sacks in the last 4 years. He's got at least double-digit sacks in like the last 7 years. Garrett is the real deal. Says he wants out of Cleveland. Now, it's also worth pointing out he has no guaranteed money left on his deal. So could this be a contract ploy? Yes.
Certainly.
But Garrett, to me, I talked to Gerald McCoy earlier, who knows Myles. He's like, I don't know, man, that's a pretty loyal dude. Like, if Myles Garrett just wanted more guaranteed money, you just wanted money converted, you could go to Haslam and say, I need more guaranteed money, and they'd probably do it. This trade request feels a little more real because Cleveland is so broken, and that dude wants a chance at playoff success.
They're broken because all of the money that Deshaun Watson takes.
Sure.
I mean, it's an impossible situation.
They're broken because of the owner. Like, we can recognize it now. Like,
Absolutely.
I know what the Jets look like. I know what Cleveland looks like.
But here's my question for you. And Myles Garrett's obviously an incredible player. How much are you willing to give up a first rounder to get him?
2.
You'll give up 2 first rounders for him?
Myles Garrett just turned 29 last month.
I'm aware.
He's an absolute stud. You're picking 29th this year. And then next year, you're probably, if things go the way you projected,
they're picking 20 plus.
They're picking in the 20s.
Yeah.
Dude, 2 1s for Myles Garrett yesterday.
I want him in the burgundy and gold. He's exactly the player that this defense needs. Any defense across the league needs it.
Now you got to rework the deal and there's stuff. And if you look at Adam Peters, if you look at San Fran anyway, when Peters was kind of number 3, they traded for Trent, they traded for Christian McCaffrey. Like, they trade for stars.
Right.
In the brief time he's been here, Peters traded for Lattimore, like not scared to trade for stars. I'm not saying this is likely. The cap ramifications for Cleveland would be really, really wacky if they actually made this move. You'd have to rework some contracts. Like, a lot would have to happen, but I'm not ruling that out. Like, I think there's reason for legitimate speculation surrounding the Garrett thing because of his position, the position in need in Washington, the cap space Washington has. I get you want to build through the draft, but this is a different level of player.
Totally agree with you. And
2 1s yesterday.
I do want to make it happen. I just wonder how it fits into the building through the draft discussion that they've had for so long. And
Ruben
covers
the Eagles.
Yeah,
busy.
I think that this, obviously the team made the NFC Championship this year, right? So the timeline gets sped up. This feels like this would be a very aggressive move, and I like it because of the player that he is. But we have to talk about the reasonability of it all with the way that Adam Peters and Dan Quinn have talked about this thing. And for that reason, like with the T. Higgins talk and
generally I'm the no guy. Like the T. Higgins, I'm out on
T. Higgins. Yeah, okay.
This is something entirely
T. Higgins
different.
is a great player.
Because to me,
I just don't want to trade for. I just want to pay him.
Well, for me, dude, it's like Jamar Chase. I've said I don't think Jamar Chase will come
available. Yeah,
right. But they couldn't get the deal done. Maybe they tag him.
And you pay whatever you can to get.
But Jamar Chase, you give whatever it costs because he's outrageous. I put Garrett in the same category.
Okay, I agree. I agree.
I think the NBA has really ruined this with the Supermax, that one guy gets 1/3 team All-NBA and he qualifies for a Supermax. The term like star and superstar and all that stuff gets thrown around
a lot.
Way too much, but Garrett is actually that.
He is a superstar. There is zero question about that.
And when you look at Garrett, dude, he's now making $10 million less than Nick Bosa. You don't think that's on his mind?
Of course. Of course he's looking around the league, looking at how much all these guys are making.
Right. He is a true difference maker. And for a defense that, I know people weren't thrilled with Lattimore the way he played, but if you had traded for a stud corner, at least they believe they've got him, and then you were able to acquire a stud D end, all of a sudden, like, the conversation around Washington getting to an NFC title game isn't like fluky. It's like, damn, that team is loaded.
And they're building towards doing it again.
And
I mean, that's what you got to.
And who's the bully of the NFC East right now is the Eagles. And what have they done? They've aggressively traded
offensive and defensive lines,
and they've traded for.
And they've traded for folks. Yeah.
So
absolutely.
I at least think it's interesting.
Did you see Adam Schefter talking about Marcus Mariota today? He was connecting him to Chip Kelly, who took the OC job in Vegas,
yeah.
And Tua down in Miami. They have the Polynesian connection. They're apparently very good friends.
I can see that.
I never thought I would care so much about or think so much about wanting to bring back a backup quarterback who doesn't really have, on-field upside. It doesn't have extended on-field upside. We kind of know who Marcus Mariota is.
He was good when he played.
I would kill to have him back. I think they should do everything they can to get him back in the burgundy and gold. Both for what he did on the field.
He's got to decide what he wants.
He's got to decide what he wants.
Vegas, he could probably start, right? Or at least
right. And Miami, who knows what the hell's going to happen there with Tua's concussions, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
that's interesting.
I think also
you'd love to have him back.
Behind the scenes with Jaden, I would give him, some of that real backup money, the $10 million type backup money that some of those guys are getting.
I agree, but I think it's important, like, we remind ourselves as much as we're going to get worked up, because it's Monday at what time is it?
Yeah.
3 Central? I know it better not be. 2:20 Central. So no real coaching news today, at least for Washington, as far as Tavita and Brian Johnson and Blau. Washington has said no to some interviews for David Blau.
Right.
In my mind, and I don't want to extrapolate too much, I think I think if I'm DQ, I probably see Cliff leaving next year, and I think there's a chance you're promoting Blau next year. Like that, that wouldn't shock me. But I think in that vein, like with Jaden, Marcus was awesome. Those two are clearly good friends, got along really well. It was such a touching moment when Mariota throws the touchdown at the end of the Dallas game. Jaden went nuts.
Yeah.
But like Adam Gase was able to get 2 jobs because he coached Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Like, eventually, it was Peyton Manning. It wasn't that, like,
of course,
I think,
yeah.
But I mean,
I'm not taking anything away from Jaden.
I know you aren't. I'm saying, but like, the level of angst we all may have over time here with pieces of the offense leaving or going somewhere or like signing elsewhere. Yeah. Like, Jaden's the central character in that.
Well,
he ain't going anywhere.
We also are just so not used to players leaving in free agents, being needed elsewhere, being wanted elsewhere from this roster. So it's just a mind change that we have to get to. I got a chance to talk to Ryan Leaf. He's obviously a former number 2 overall pick around the NFL, everywhere. Had a lot of good things to say about the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, front office, ownership, across the board.
Well, I mean, like everybody's, it was pretty impressive. What they were able to do, what they were able to accomplish. What surprises me a lot of times is when you go get a new head coach, you don't pair that with a new quarterback if that's what you're trying to do. A lot of times we see something similar that we saw in Chicago this year. You had a kind of almost a lame duck coach, and you go get a rookie quarterback, and sure enough, the coach is fired midseason, and now the quarterback's on to his 3rd offense and a new 3rd head coach by the time he's entering his 2nd year. That's not the case, certainly in Washington. You had a young man who came in, fit perfectly with what Cliff Kingsbury did. Dan Quinn develops and brings teams together, and then Jaden behaved and had an attitude around developing and getting better. Just the things he did, apparently stayed with his mom this year, wasn't, about anything else than being the CEO of a Fortune 500 company.
And what did Cliff Kingsbury do with this offense that allowed Jaden to have the success that he did have?
He simplified it, plain and simple, and that's the offensive coordinator's job, to make the game as simple as it can be for your quarterback. And he did a remarkable job. It was probably the best hire because you take a quarterback that is, it was based in the college landscape of scheme, and how it went about its business. Kind of a hybrid air raid from the Mike Leach era. He's been a head coach in this league with Kyler Murray. So I thought it was a very good fit. And he essentially brought the triple option back to the NFL. That's what makes it simple, Jaden doesn't have to do much with that. He's just got to make the right reads because it's man-to-man then in those types of situations, and that's what made him so great. And then when they asked him to be in the pocket and do the things in the RPO game, he excelled at it. So, it was a perfect fit. Great hire by Dan Quinn. I'm so surprised more teams weren't looking at Cliff Kingsbury this year, in particular the Bears, having him coached Caleb Williams at his time at USC. So interesting on that aspect of things.
When you look at Jaden Daniels, he talked about simplifying the offense. What about the player himself made him successful this year? What did you see between the white lines that let him be the offensive rookie of the year?
Well, I think his leadership skills. I think that, you could tell pretty early on that Cliff Kingsbury was putting all of his trust in him because he handled the ball more than anybody. A lot of times you looked on that box score and he was the leading passer, he was the leading rusher, all of that. And when you ask that of a rookie quarterback, that means he's not a rookie anymore. He's a leader of the football team. He played a lot of years in college. He's got a lot of football under his belt. And there's one thing about Jaden Daniels, having covered him from his freshman year at Arizona State to when he left LSU as the Heisman Trophy winner, he improved every single year. And that's what Tom Brady was so good at the NFL level. He got better every year. Even when he won Super Bowls, he went to work on the thing that he thought he had to get better at. And that's humility. And I think Jaden has that, and I think he'll get better. And I think that bodes well for a Washington team that, listen, you get to the NFC title game, you have that opportunity, you better take the advantage of it. Yeah, Detroit found that out the hard way. They thought they were getting back there this year. Nope, there's an upstart team like Washington that shows up. What's going to be that team? Can they do it? So that's why you got to take advantage of those things. And it wasn't anything Jaden did. The guys that weren't prepared, weren't ready, who were young, made big mistakes, and those turnovers cost them the football game.
When you look at, having a successful rookie quarterback, you need to build off of that. Are there things you can learn from around the league as far as roster building goes? Maybe look at how the Chiefs built their team to take advantage of a rookie when he's, on that contract?
Yeah, you better. This is, when you're talking about a copycat league, but I do think there's probably anywhere from 8 to 10 organizations in this league that really do it right. And I wouldn't have put Washington in that category, especially under the ownership that they've had for so long. But I think that has shifted. Don't forget, this was a team in an era with Joe Gibbs, with Bobby Beathard, that did it right, built the team, got it done the right way. So I think they have the capability of doing that. And yeah, you got to look around and look at what teams did when they had a quarterback on a rookie contract, how you built around that and made them where you can make a run and to utilize that rookie contract situation.
You mentioned the 5 years in college for Jaden Daniels. Kind of one of the knocks that folks had when he was going through the draft process was age. Do you think his success this year will kind of change the way NFL teams look at guys with that much experience in college, particularly with NIL and all the things that are happening over there?
You don't have a Patrick Mahomes out there anywhere else, right? So if you're looking for a window like of great football and a chance to win championships, if a guy comes into the league at 24 years old rather than 22, and he plays till 28 or 30, and you have a chance at a couple championships, what are you talking about? You go into a draft and quarterback think he's going to play 18 years? That's the exception. That just doesn't happen. Like the average length of a career in the NFL is 2.8 years. So, hey, if you got a guy with experience, look at Bo Nix. One of the best seasons. Look at Michael Penix Jr. He's an older guy too. The two younger guys, and Caleb Williams, Drake May, J.J. McCarthy, those are the three guys that you would say are on the back end of this. J.J., of course, not playing. Caleb having a tough year. And then you have Drake May, who I thought played good at times, but still they couldn't find out ways to win. So the three guys that were the older guys in this year's draft class are the ones at the end that are looking pretty darn good.
And one thing Jaden did a lot in college that he's brought to the NFL was the virtual reality, getting kind of the mental reps. Can you imagine how much can that help a quarterback, I guess, as they're kind of going through the learning process?
Yeah, anything you can do to get extra reps that are real in nature, it's going to benefit you. It's just a 10,000 hour rule. You do things over and over and over and over again better than anybody else. When you go up against them in a situation, they won't be as prepared as you. And he understands that. I spoke to Arizona State, I think, his sophomore year, and one of the things I talked about was being a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. That's what you're doing. Everything you're doing during that first contract as a draft pick, especially as a quarterback, is you're building the foundation. And everything you do, whether that's hiring a nutritionist, living in a place right next to the facility, in this case with his mom, not going out, everything builds towards that second contract. That's where you sell the business. You make the big dividend and everything like that. That's what it's about. And he certainly has set himself up as a CEO of a huge Fortune 500 company.
And you mentioned the ownership group with that change, and not just the ownership change, but bringing in Adam Peters, having a traditional NFL, front office. How much can that change a team year to year, and how big of a deal is that when players are trying to, figure out where they want to go and play?
Well, I mean, I think you got the perfect example. I mean, this was as good of an evidentiary tale of how to do it the right way. You get the bad ownership out of there with all the everything just seemed to be covered by clouds. There was never anything good or positive. Even then with Alex Smith coming there and them winning the division, everybody was just like, I was just so worried every time that Alex took a snap, his leg was gonna snap again. Like there was no an enjoyment in that. There was just no enjoyment with Snyder as the owner of that team. And I just think there's a new lease on life, in Washington. And we could see it this year. People were happy and they were excited, and and there was a great opportunity for this football team. And listen, football is football. It's a child's game, but when you win, it brings people together. It brings a city together, and that's exactly what we saw this year.
All right, busy week. We're going to do the streams all week. End of the week, we're doing a TV show.
Correct.
Best of or
it'll be a little bit of everything, okay. But it'll be a lot of fun. Today, obviously, you guys are watching this now. Wednesday, Thursday.
We still care if you listen.
All the podcasts are still coming out as normal. Then we'll have the TV show for the pregame show for the Super Bowl on Sunday, which will be awesome.
Cool.
And there's a lot of good stuff coming your way.
All right, we're going to get out of here. You made it this far. Mitch owes you a beer.